Your turbo is being slowly destroyed, and the worst part is, you are doing it yourself without even knowing it. The habits I'm about to describe feel completely harmless. Some of them even seem like the responsible thing to do. But if you are driving a turbocharged Ford with an EcoBoost engine, these 4 idling habits are cooking your turbo oil, glazing your bearings, and setting you up for a repair bill that starts at $1,500 and can easily climb past $4,000. I have been working on turbocharged Fords for over 15 years, and I want to be direct with you. The number one cause of premature turbo failure that I see in my shop is not neglect. It is not skipping oil changes. It is not even pushing the engine too hard. It is owners doing these 4 specific things at idle, thinking they are being careful, when they are actually causing the exact damage they are trying to avoid. By the time you finish watching this, you'll understand exactly why each habit is dangerous, what it does to your turbo at the mechanical level, and precisely how to fix it before the damage becomes permanent. Let us get into it. The first habit is shutting the engine off immediately after hard driving, and it is the single most destructive thing you can do to a turbocharged Ford. Picture what is happening inside your turbo when you have been pushing the truck hard. You may have been on the highway, towing a trailer, doing some spirited driving in sport mode, or driving aggressively through traffic. During all of that, your turbocharger has been spinning at somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 revolutions per minute. Let that number sink in. The center shaft of your turbo, the piece that connects the compressor wheel to the turbine wheel, is floating on a thin film of pressurized engine oil. That oil is doing 2 jobs simultaneously. It lubricates the bearings, and it pulls heat away from the center housing. As long as your engine is running, that oil is pumped through continuously, replacing hot oil with fresh, cool oil, maintaining the lubrication film that keeps those bearings alive. The moment you shut your engine off, the oil pump stops. Oil pressure drops to 0 instantly. The bearings go dry. But here is the part that really matters. The exhaust side of your turbo, the turbine housing, has been glowing hot from exhaust gases that can exceed 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit under hard use. The turbine shaft is soaked in that heat. The center housing connecting it to the compressor side is saturated with thermal energy. When the engine stops and oil circulation stops, all of that heat has nowhere to go except inward. It migrates toward the center of the turbo, toward the bearing journals, toward the oil passages, toward the last small amount of oil still sitting in those passages. That oil gets cooked. It does not just get hot, it carbonizes. It turns from lubricating oil into a black varnish-like deposit that bakes onto the bearing journals and oil feed passages. Over time, these carbon deposits build up inside the turbo's center housing. The oil passages get narrower, oil flow at startup is restricted. The bearings start their life each morning with less lubrication than they need. You start hearing a faint rattle on cold starts that goes away after a few seconds. You dismiss it as normal cold start behavior. But what is actually happening is that your turbo bearings are experiencing a brief period of metal-to-metal contact every single time you start the engine. Because the coked deposits have reduced oil flow to a trickle until pressure builds up. That rattle is the sound of your turbo telling you it has been damaged. Ford EcoBoost engines, the 2.7 liter, the 3.5 liter, and the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder, all use integrated exhaust manifold turbos on some versions, which positions the turbocharger extremely close to the combustion process. These engines run hotter in the turbo housing than older designs with a turbo sat further downstream. That makes heat soak after shutdown even more severe on these specific platforms. The fix is straightforward but requires building a habit. After any hard driving, any towing, any sustained highway running, you need to let your engine idle for at least 2 full minutes before shutting it off. 3 minutes is better if you have been really working the truck. During that idle period, oil is still circulating through the turbo. It is carrying heat away from the center housing. The turbo is spinning down from its working speed to near idle speed under minimal load. By the time you actually turn the key off, the turbine housing temperature has dropped significantly and the bearing journals have been flushed with fresh oil. You are not allowing carbon to bake into place. I have had customers tell me they do not have time for a 2-minute cool down period. Here is my answer to that. A turbocharger replacement on a 2.7-liter EcoBoost F150 runs between $1,800 and $3,200 in parts and labor. That is an expensive repair compared with the time it takes to idle for a couple of minutes. And replacement on a 3.5-liter EcoBoost can reach $2,800 to $4,500, depending on whether related components like oil lines and gaskets need to be replaced at the same time. 2 minutes of idling every time you have pushed the truck is the cheapest insurance policy you will ever buy. If you are finding this valuable, go ahead and subscribe right now and hit that notification bell. The next habit affects every single turbocharged Ford owner, regardless of how you drive. The second habit is using remote start and then driving immediately. Remote start is one of the most popular features on modern Fords, and almost every owner uses it the same way. You press the button from inside your house, the truck starts. And by the time you have grabbed your coffee and your bag and walked outside 3 or 4 minutes later, you hop in and drive off immediately. This feels completely fine. The engine has been running. The interior is comfortable. You are not doing a cold start and immediately driving hard. But here is exactly what you are missing. When your engine starts via remote start, oil pressure builds within the first few seconds and oil begins circulating through the engine. For the bottom end, the crankshaft, the connecting rods, the main bearings, this is genuinely beneficial warm-up time. But your turbocharger requires something that idling alone cannot provide. The turbo oil passages are small, and they rely partly on oil flow dynamics under load to properly flush and pressurize the bearing journals. At idle, oil flow to the turbo exists, but it is not the rich pressurized flow that occurs when the engine is under even light driving load. More importantly, the turbo shaft is not spinning at any meaningful speed during idle. It is turning slowly because there is very little exhaust flow at idle revolutions per minute and negligible boost demand. The bearing clearances are set with the assumption that oil viscosity and flow under operating conditions will maintain the proper film. Here is where the damage occurs. You have allowed the engine to idle for 4 minutes. You get in and you immediately pull out of the driveway and accelerate. On a cold morning, your oil is still thick. It has not reached full operating temperature. Thick cold oil does not flow through small passages as effectively as oil at proper operating temperature. The moment you accelerate, your turbo goes from barely spinning to immediately spooling up to working speeds. You are demanding boost and the turbo responds, but the bearing lubrication at that instant is being supplied by thick, not yet fully warm oil through passages that have not seen full flow dynamics during that idle period. The bearing film is marginal right at the moment of highest demand. This is called cold turbo acceleration stress, and it is a well-documented cause of premature bearing wear in turbocharged engines. Modify how you use remote start rather than abandon it entirely. Let the truck run via remote start during cold weather, but when you get in, resist the urge to immediately accelerate aggressively. Give yourself 60 seconds of gentle driving. Keep engine speed below 2,000 revolutions per minute. Let the turbo spool gently as you ease down your street before asking it to work hard. That 60 seconds of light load operation finishes what the remote idle started. It warms the oil in the turbo passages specifically, not just in the sump. It allows the turbo to spool to light working speeds before you demand full boost. By the time you reach the first traffic light or the end of your neighborhood, your turbo is genuinely ready to work. This is such a simple change that it costs you literally nothing, but it adds years to the life of your turbocharger. The third habit is extended idling for warm-up in winter, and this one is counterintuitive because warming up your truck before driving seems like exactly the right thing to do for your engine's health. The logic makes sense on the surface. Cold engines need to warm up before being worked hard. Your grandfather's carbureted truck actually did need several minutes of idling to get the choke set properly and the fuel mixture stabilized. Old habit, good intentions. But in a modern direct injection EcoBoost Ford, extended idling in winter is not protecting your turbo, it is damaging it. Here's what actually happens inside a turbocharged direct injection engine during extended cold idle. The engine is producing combustion, but the combustion is not efficient at low temperatures and minimal load. Fuel delivery in a direct injection system is calibrated for optimal burn at normal operating conditions. At cold idle, some fuel escapes the combustion chamber as vapor without fully burning. The positive crankcase ventilation system routes these combustion byproducts, including fuel vapor and oil mist, back through the intake system. In a direct injection engine, these vapors have no opportunity to be washed off the intake valves by fuel because fuel is injected directly into the cylinder and not through the intake port. Over time, this creates carbon buildup on the intake valves. But the part most people do not know is that extended cold idle contributes to a specific type of oil contamination in the turbo oil supply. When the engine sits at cold idle for extended periods, oil temperature rises slowly. Modern synthetic oils are excellent at cold temperature performance, but they are not at their optimal viscosity for turbo lubrication until they approach normal operating temperature, which is between 195 and 220 degrees Fahrenheit. An engine idling on a cold morning in a Minnesota driveway may take 15 to 20 minutes of idling before the oil in the turbo feed passages reaches that optimal temperature. During that time, you are circulating slightly thick oil through the turbo, and more importantly, you are allowing moisture that is condensed in the crankcase to remain suspended in that oil rather than evaporating off as it does during normal driving operation. This moisture in the oil accelerates acid formation, which attacks bearing surfaces. The turbo is also experiencing what engineers call thermal cycling stress during extended cold idle. The exhaust side of the turbo gets hot fairly quickly because exhaust gases flow through it from the moment of startup. But the intake side, the compressor housing, remains cold because you are drawing cold ambient air through it. The center housing, sitting between these two extremes, is managing a temperature differential that stresses the aluminum alloy and the seals. In normal driving operation, this thermal cycling happens quickly as the whole system comes up to temperature under load. In extended idle, the differential persists much longer, placing sustained stress on the center housing seals that keep oil where it belongs. Ford's official guidance in the owner's manual is to limit warm-up idling to approximately 2 minutes under normal conditions and to drive gently until the engine reaches operating temperature, rather than idling until it does. Modern fuel injection technology combined with synthetic oils means your EcoBoost engine is ready to be driven gently within 30 to 60 seconds of startup regardless of temperature. The engine warms up faster under light driving load than it does at idle because combustion is more efficient and heat generation is higher. 2 minutes maximum on the cold startup idle, then drive easy for the first few miles. Your turbo reaches optimal lubrication conditions faster, the oil gets up to temperature faster, and the entire system transitions from cold to warm more quickly and with less wear than it would sitting in your driveway for 10 minutes. If you're still watching at this point, you already understand your turbo better than 90% of Ford owners. Make sure you're subscribed because the fourth habit is the one that surprises people the most, and it happens to EcoBoost owners every single day. The fourth habit is parking lot idling with the air conditioning at maximum. This one catches people completely off guard because it feels like you are just sitting there. You arrived early, or you are waiting to pick someone up, or you are parked at a job site waiting for a meeting. The engine is idling. You are not driving. How much harm can this possibly be doing? The answer depends on ambient conditions, but in warm weather, with the air conditioning on full, this habit puts your turbo in a uniquely stressful situation that combines several problems into one sustained event. Here is what is happening mechanically. When you are sitting at idle with the air conditioning compressor engaged at maximum cooling, the engine accessory load is significant. The air conditioning compressor on a modern Ford can consume between 4 and 8 horsepower at full operation. The engine management system compensates by slightly increasing engine idle speed, but the throttle remains effectively closed or nearly so. That means exhaust flow through the turbo is minimal and the turbo shaft is barely spinning. The engine is working harder than a zero-load idle because of the accessory demand. Combustion temperature is slightly elevated, and exhaust temperatures are slightly higher than a pure unloaded idle. The turbo housing is receiving meaningful heat from exhaust gases, but the turbo shaft is not spinning fast enough to generate the hydrodynamic oil film across the bearing journals that exists during normal boost operation. What you have is high heat input into the turbo housing combined with inadequate bearing speed to maintain proper lubrication dynamics. Now add a factor specific to long parking lot idles. As you sit there for 20 or 30 minutes, the oil in the turbo center housing is subjected to sustained elevated temperature without the cooling benefit of high oil flow that occurs during driving. The turbo relies on constant oil circulation to carry heat away. At idle with an air conditioning load, that circulation still occurs, but at a lower rate than under driving conditions. Oil temperature in the turbo passages creeps higher than it would during driving because there is no airflow cooling the center housing the way driving speed creates airflow around the engine bay. On a 90-degree day, sitting in a parking lot for 30 minutes, your turbo center housing temperature can reach levels that begin accelerating oil oxidation. Oxidized oil loses its lubricity and begins forming varnish deposits similar to what we described earlier, just more slowly and without the dramatic heat soak of a hard shutdown. There is also a component interaction most people do not expect. Ford 2.7-liter and 3.5-liter EcoBoost engines use a turbo cooling system that circulates coolant through the center housing even after engine shutdown, continuing to pull heat away via a thermosiphon effect. That coolant circulation is effective for the heat soak that follows a normal hot shutdown, but it is not designed to address the oil oxidation that occurs during extended low-speed idle operation. The practical solution requires a slight mindset shift. If you're going to wait for more than 5 minutes, shut the engine off. That is actually better for your turbo than letting it idle. When you shut off after a normal non-hard driving idle period, the turbo is barely spinning, exhaust temperatures are low, and the center housing has not accumulated the kind of heat that causes oil coking. Restarting every 10 or 15 minutes for a brief cabin cool down is a far better choice than running the engine continuously. If your Ford has the Ford Pass app and remote start capability, you can run the engine for a few minutes to re-cool the cabin on demand without sitting there idling continuously. Modern EcoBoost engines are designed for easy starting, and they do not suffer any meaningful wear from multiple start and stop cycles, as long as there is reasonable time between starts to allow oil pressure to build before any load is applied. Here's the bigger picture that ties all 4 of these habits together. Your turbocharger is the most precision-engineered component in your entire drivetrain. The bearing clearances are measured in thousandths of an inch. The shaft runs at speeds that make your engine's crankshaft seem slow by comparison. The oil film that keeps it alive is thinner than a human hair, and it exists entirely because of pressure, temperature, and flow dynamics that only work correctly when your habits support them. Turbocharger oil coking, the carbon deposit formation that slowly kills turbo bearings, is overwhelmingly caused by thermal events at idle. Hot shutdowns, cold start acceleration, extended warming idles, and sustained parking lot. Idling all create conditions where the oil in the turbo passages is stressed beyond its designed parameters. Each event individually does minor damage, but owners who do all four habitually are compressing what might be a 200,000-mile turbo life into 60 or 70,000 miles. The oil you use matters too. If you are running a turbocharged EcoBoost Ford and you are still using conventional oil because it is cheaper, you are significantly increasing your risk from every one of these habits. Ford specifies full synthetic oil for EcoBoost engines for a reason. Synthetic oil has dramatically higher oxidation resistance than conventional oil. It maintains its viscosity more consistently across temperature extremes. Its film strength holds up better under the marginal lubrication conditions that these idling habits create. Full synthetic does not make these habits safe, but it does give your turbo more margin before each heat event causes actual damage. If you are doing anything described in this video regularly, the absolute minimum you should do is ensure you are running full synthetic oil at the interval Ford recommends. For most EcoBoost applications, that is 10,000 miles under normal conditions or 5,000 miles under severe duty conditions, such as frequent towing, frequent short trips, and frequent extreme temperatures. The inspection that tells you whether this damage has already started is simple, and you can do it yourself. Cold start your engine after it has sat overnight. Listen carefully in the first 3 to 5 seconds before it fully warms up. A healthy turbo on a cold start is nearly silent if you hear a faint metallic whine or a brief rattle that dissipates within the first 10 seconds. That is your turbo bearings experiencing dry or marginal contact because oil flow is restricted by deposits. If that sound is present and you catch it early, aggressive synthetic oil use and eliminating these four habits can sometimes allow the deposits to gradually soften and reduce as clean oil flushes the passages. If the sound is pronounced or takes longer than 10 seconds to disappear, you likely have bearing wear that has progressed to the point where repair is the only solution. Change these four habits and your EcoBoost Turbo will last the life of your truck. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment below telling me which one of these habits you have been guilty of. I read every comment. If you know another EcoBoost Ford owner who needed to hear this, share this video with them right now. The information here could genuinely save them thousands of dollars. I will see you in the next one.